Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I just want to say welcome to everyone, and to this amazing week of World Unity. This is I think the third year, maybe third or fourth. I know I have participated for several years. And also welcome to this convergence room. So if you're not familiar with World Unity Week, there are many different rooms they call convergence rooms. This one is Humanity as Organism Thrives. And I was very excited by this theme. Room is being stewarded by Dr. Tom Ackland and Hasina Patel. And so big thanks to both of you for hosting this and bringing such a wonderful opportunity for all of us to gather together. And I am Sheila Cash, and I'm founder of the Evolutionary Playground and the Superconscious Think Tank. And I'm really looking forward to immersing with all of you in this consciousness of what I'm calling the Great Pause, and calling this discussion the Great Pause for moving humanity forward. So this concept, the Great Pause, came about as I began noticing a trend occurring in many of my global networks. And I started witnessing just a growing number of people who were spontaneously and without great planning were heeding a call to step away, to step back, and just allow themselves to be, which is a radically different state of being that we're used to in 2023, especially with all of the AI coming in that we were just talking about in the beginning here as we were getting started. Stepping away in itself is not unheard of. Of course, it's been going on for as long as humanity has existed. And there was a big movement in the 60s and with the Beatles, and people were taking, sabbaticals. But this was different. It had a different feel with so many people that I was talking to. Different than spiritual sabbaticals, where maybe there's a goal of immersing into a particular philosophy or doctrine. Maybe there's a goal of letting go of the ego. I've heard that many times. Or maybe it's just exploring deep meditation during a period of time. But there were intriguing patterns that I began to pick up on, and I'm going to talk much more about those. But first, some of the people that I have spoken to, especially in the last couple of years, and even just recently, even up to the current moment, who have experienced this pause are here with me to share with you. And I know there'll be hundreds of listening to this recording as well. So I'd like to introduce those people to you now. And we do have Dr. Tom Ackland. Tom is a food as medicine specialist who works, and I would say plays, if you know Tom, in microbiome reconstruction, regenerative neuroscience, and he has a strong background in neuropsychoimmunology. Just about got that out right. And integrated that along his path of energy medicine, yoga, and many avenues of mind-body wellness. So we welcome you, Tom. And we have Hasina Patel, the other co-steward of this room. She is the co-founder of Leave No Girl Behind International Organization, an amazing organization that gives voice and empowerment to young girls and women. She's also a healing breakthrough coach, an Akashic records reader, a yoga instructor, and a peace builder, among other things. We have Liz Williams, who is a founder of AWE Partners, that's AWE Partners. It's a social impact advisory firm that seeks to co-create a new future that supports all of humanity and our precious mother, Gaia. Liz has facilitated many projects on behalf of women and humanity. And I've been with her co-facilitating many of those projects as well. And we have Melissa Fundanish, who is a successfully retired education leader who's very passionate about leading and living an organically healthy and active life, and who has beautifully navigated a great big pause of her own in recent years. And I know that she has valuable, excuse me, insights to share with all of you. Dr. Julie Kroll sends her very sincere regrets. She's unable to be with us last minute today. She had really been looking forward to being with us and can't wait for the recording, because she experienced very deeply in the last couple of years a great pause of her own. She'd been very excited to dive in with us, so she's sending her well wishes to everyone and really looking forward to hearing our talk. So each of our panelists have come into their pauses from a variety of different ways, and it's going to be really fascinating to hear from each of you. And I extend a warm welcome to all of you and to all of the listeners as well. So a little context about how I came to notice this trend. The various avenues of my work in consciousness are all about tuning into what we call the evolutionary impulse. And that is the impulse of life that keeps your heart beating, that keeps nature evolving along always. It's the spark of life from the microcellular to the universal. And one of my practices and teachings is the attunement to the EI, just call it EI for short, evolutionary impulse. And one of the truly fascinating aspects to this practice, and this arose very naturally over the last couple of decades of this practice that I came to very organically. One of the fascinating aspects is the recognition of trends within humanity. And you can see these patterns and trends, and they reveal universal energies that are being intricately orchestrated by the impulse itself. So by observing these trends, you can see where life or humanity is heading and why. You can watch the universal intelligence at work. So first it was one or two people in my networks who were taking time out, and then it was a few clients, then it was a few relatives, then it was some members of my global groups. And while talking to them over the course of the last couple of years especially, I noticed some really thought-provoking patterns. One was that there was a not knowing of what they were going to do with their time out, other than immerse in the experience. And I kept hearing this over and over again. Was also hearing that they seemed to be heeding an instinct that they couldn't quite put words to. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what this is, but I'm feeling it. I'm getting it. I'm hearing it. I'm it's just, I'm embodying it. And that once past the logistics of their circumstance, because we all are entangled in our circumstances, right? That they just eased into beingness, and that there were no really particular goals as much as an allowing and being in the arising awareness and the realizations and maybe revelations. And it was so, I'm telling you, it was so fascinating, because each of these people who all over the globe didn't know each other were all describing it the same way. That they were going to do this no matter what. That there was a phenomena of clarity that was common among these people, that they were going to do this even if they didn't know what they were doing. I love it. I love it. So this was about more than just getting away from their current jobs or more than just needing a good rest, although those may have been the results. Some got to their evolution, I'm just calling it evolutionary sabbatical space, through loss or tragedy, some through illness, others through spontaneous awakenings, let's say, to a new level of life. And many of these were leaving high-level positions in their careers or long-term relationships that they didn't necessarily need to leave. In other words, there wasn't anything that was monumentally pressing. So this was another characteristic. And then I noticed over time their firm resolve that they were doing the right thing and that they were going to keep doing it for a while, that there was no rush here. There was no end goal of 3 months or 6 months or a year like a traditional sabbatical might be. And so each of those that I've known who have re-entered have been changed. And I have to tell you that there were some who I contacted to be with us today who are still in this space and they're still staying there. That's why they're not with us right now. So I'm used to seeing people and seeing life through the lens of the bigger picture. This is my whole, and as an author, this is what I've written about over the years. And that bigger picture is the evolutionary impulse. And so I knew that this was more than a coinky-dink, I say, when so many who didn't know each other were going through the same thing. Life is expanding for us in this dazzling, mind-boggling way right now. And so I asked, is there a grand design of reintegration happening here from the micro, our personal experience, out to the macro? Could the EI be organizing us for not only a new, but a different level of connection together? And in the face of our very rapidly changing future, as cells in humanity as organism thrives, are we really separating as we're stepping back? Or is our collective conscience regenerating and or realigning in some way? So some of the aspects that I'd like to explore are, what is the bigger picture around this in regards to humanity as organism? How might this phenomena be preparing for a new level of co-creation globally? Or is there some other purpose entirely? There's infinite possibilities here. Where might this be leading us in the context of our collective future? So there are many trends right now toward co-creation, collaboration, authenticity within the collective, as well as peace, and of course, higher consciousness than we've ever had access to globally and en masse before. So the implications are really tremendous. But I want to start with the real and practical experience that each of you on our panel has had with your own personal awakening to your own pause, your great pause. And then we'll go on to consider a number of other points from the bigger picture. So the first thing I want to ask is, please share with us how you began to notice that urging or that aha moment. When was the moment? What was that like when it came to you that this is it? I'm not just thinking about it anymore. I know that this is the direction. What was that like? Was it circumstantial? Because for some, it is, if there's a tragedy or a loss or an illness. But for others, it might have been a dream. For some, an awakening of some kind. So what we want to share with listeners is what that feels like and how to recognize it because, it's very usually kind of undetectably subtle. But for others, it could be I call it a universal 2x4 upside the head, right? Because it comes in a range of ways. But we want to share with the listeners what that's like, so that they can it will probably affirm for many, for hundreds around the globe. Oh, that's what's happening here. I'm going to go ahead and call on you, just going around my screen. And so share for up to a couple of minutes for this first round, because we're going to get into the evolution of your pause with the next question. This one is just about that aha moment and those realizations. So let me go ahead and call on Tom first, if you could share with us what that was like for you in a couple of minutes.
It's brilliant, Sheila. I resonate so deeply with so much of what you said. And I just have to say, even though I'd say this phrase came out of my mouth, once every couple of months in the past years. And this week I've mentioned it probably half a dozen times. You're talking about the subtle access to the EI, to the evolutionary impulse. And in a collective consciousness, this emergent phenomena of attending to the subtle. And my dad used to say, you'll get poked in the ribs until you get hit upside the head with a 2x4. Yeah. And I may have told you that years back. I don't know if I'm responsible for what you just said or not, but I love hearing it. And
the universal 2x4. Yeah.
And it's a tweak. It's a reminder that the angels are with us, the spirits, the guiding, sculpting forces of our lives, whether they're on this planet or not, still are always with us, and we always have access. And that's what's coming out of this week for me, is that sense of pause is a step away from what feels like an obligatory me-ness. Right. That's the great paradox, is we can glimpse it, we can taste it for a second in mindfulness practices. And you will be reminded, right? More will be revealed, and more will only be revealed after there's a bit of a contrast. And that contrast is, oh, damn, I'm Tom again. Darn it. Right. But I'll speak just briefly, because I also had a nice synchronicity moment. As you were speaking the word sabbatical, I literally was writing the word sabbatical, because when I stepped away from my practice 20 years ago now, I told people I was going on 6-month sabbatical. And I like to say I'm still on sabbatical, right? God tricked me into some different things, and we ended up buying yoga studios, and I ended up meeting people like you and learning language like this. And it's an honor to be here. So thank you so much. I appreciate I'll try to keep away from the 2x4s. I'll try to attend in a way that's dancing in the conversation enough that I avoid the 2x4.
But you're saying that it came to you, it was like, bam. You're saying and if you're speaking of when you left your very high level position 20 years ago, it was a bam moment that was the catalyst.
That was the universe suggesting that my life was not functional the way I was living it. And so I was going through a bit of a midlife crisis. My wife and son were in New York, and I was in DC, and I was back and forth, and it was hard. So I wanted to take some time off to put my personal life together, and God had different plans.
Love it.
I ended up putting my personal life together. What do you know?
Goodness. Okay, wonderful. Hasina, can you tell us about your pause, the catalyst for your pause?
Yes. So the catalyst was, the short version is I discovered I had a fibrinoma in my breast in 2013. By its nature, it's benign, But coming from a medical family, I was in a lot of fear, and it led to me asking questions, because I was eating healthy. I was, I had been for a number of years not taking any kind of medications, just supplements. And the question came that, firstly, why is it there? And who wouldn't notice, especially with my height at 4'11.5", and it was the size of a lemon. And I'm like, how wouldn't you notice? And just explain away the change in size in your breast. Like, so it led to a lot of deep questioning.
Yeah, and Hasina, I know that there are many, many, many who will be listening to this that are going to relate very, very deeply and profoundly, and probably you are, with your words, triggering some ahas around the globe, because this is a very I've heard about this experience before. So thank you very much for sharing that. And Liz?
Yes, happy to be here today with all of you. So I have had 2 pauses in the last 2 years. The first one was and I may refer to my notes here because I was thinking about it a bit, but the first would have been in early 2021, probably around January. I don't remember what exactly was going on, other than, of course, we were in the midst of the pandemic. I was continuing my work, which I really enjoyed, but I think there's always been an underlying, am I actually on the right path? Am I fully on the right path? And what I remember is I was in this room right here. I have a meditation chair in back. I was sitting on it one morning, and as clear as could be, the message said, the freedom and flow you're seeking is not out there beyond some goal you've set for yourself. Mm-hmm. The freedom and flow you're seeking is available to you right now. So why aren't you choosing it? Clear as could be. And it hit me deeply, because I realized that the choices I was making were not opening me up to the freedom and flow that I deeply desired. And literally in that moment, I said, okay, I need to pause. I need to stop what I'm doing. I had an online business at the time, all partners. And I heard the call and I stopped. There was no questioning. There was no, I thought about, what do I have to do to stop it? What do I need to complete? And there were a few things that were on my plate, finished them out and stopped. And my remembrance was, I loved it. I loved the feeling. I guess it was that true feeling of freedom, and I loved it and wanted to stay there. So going a little bit further, that would have been early 2021. But as the year progressed, I heard the call again towards something called impact circles that I had been envisioning creating, and started to hear it, and what was happening was I kept hearing things going on that made me think that would be perfect for impact circles. That would be perfect. And so I felt like I needed to go back and start bringing these forth. So ended up with Sheila, and Sheila heard the idea and loved the idea, and we decided to co-create together. What we ended up co-creating was this online summit in 2022, last year. Worked on it for probably 6 to 9 months, and then it came through last summer. Well, for whatever reason, this took me again into this place where I felt like this is not it. This is not fully what you're meant to be doing. And it was a powerful summit, and it had incredible results. And yet something kept nudging me. The other thing that started happening last summer was about the same time, things started happening to my family. I say almost a relentless attack on my family. And so things were happening in my life. And I said, Sheila and I were meant to create these impact circles right after the summit. And I told her, I can't do it. All I keep hearing again is stop. And I said, I could literally see the stop sign. And it just, that was all. There was no more explanation. It just said, stop. And so I said to Sheila again, I don't know why, but I have to stop. I cannot move forward with this now. And so I stopped. And and later in the year, I was struggling with health issues because of all that was going on in my life. And I really had to tend to those. And thankfully, I had the time and ability to do that. And now I've come out of it again and am back. And so I'll just say one thing just to tie it all together. The challenge for me is I find I love the beingness, but I keep hearing that we are at such a critical time on the planet that you're supposed to be using your gifts and your voice and you need to be out there. And so I really struggle with, do I choose that complete freedom and beingness? How do I balance it with the doing that I believe I'm being called to? And so many of us are. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Liz. And I was privy to sort of the ins and outs of Liz's journey. We're going to get into it a little bit more here in a minute. But I want to say one of the things that I'm really intrigued by is this pattern of the people that I'm talking to, because I've been in this field of conscious evolution for a couple of decades, are the sort of the global light workers and the movers and shakers and the people with awakenings and truly high consciousness. And so there is this struggle between, because these are people who are projects are coming at us, left and right, and offers and projects. And so when you hear that, it's like, what do you do? So that's very intriguing. And I want to get to Melissa. I was also really privy to her just amazing immersement into to her great pause. So Melissa, tell us about that inkling, about the first knowing of it, when you knew that this was it, you were going to do it.
So Sheila, mine was a hit over the head. I had a convergence of several situations that occurred all at once in the middle of the pandemic. I lost one of my mothers. I needed to bring my other mother to my home to care for her for the remainder of her life. And I was in a leadership position and really struggling with the person who was leading our organization. And my knowing was my health deteriorating. And so I'm sure I received taps on the shoulder, but I couldn't hear them because there was just too much stress. So the universe had to take the big club, and my health started failing. And the aha moment was hanging up the phone one day and just saying, this is it. I'm done. It's over right now. It's over. It's all over. And picking that phone back up and calling it quits with work, and then just immersing myself into taking care of my family and embarking on an amazing retirement.
So thank you, Melissa. And I remember you were another one who I recall you were getting grand offers of up leveling in your business at the time, but you decided, you declined that. I mean, it was, so you had these attractive offers, and yet you had the clarity to decline and do what you needed to do. So thank you for that. So we're going to go, the next inquiry is, now I want to move into what were the changes that you can identify that took place from that beginning of the allowance and acceptance. So now you said, okay, this is it. I'm doing this. And whether it was months or years, from that immersion and then back to if you have, and I think most of you have, sort of back, well, we'll see, back to the re-entry. And you could speak to the spiritual or the mental or emotional or even physical changes. But so, I'd like to ask, did knowings begin to emerge from your heart sense about your outlook on the world, or your connection to the world, or your connection to yourself? So now, and we'll keep it to a few minutes each, If you could just give us some buzzwords about that progression from the allowance, you're in it now, back to the reentry or nearing a reentry if you are. And how's your consciousness, how's your heart changing, how's the connections changing during that time? And I'll start with you again, Tom.
One of the great threads this week has been both personal and social fabric transformation from the idea of expert and domination and top-down dynamics that we all were educated into, to community fabric, right? And this morning's plenary session was brilliant when it comes down to sacred self-respect and respect for every sense of defense, if you will. That's what's coming to me, is each of us has an ego structure that has insecurities, and out of the insecurities we were taught overcome. And there's something else there in the sacred interface. In real relationship, there is a new vulnerability emerging. There's a new transparency emerging. And it's not a personal skill set of, how do I say this? There is a holistic permission to listen to each other deeply that humanity hasn't had for a while. It's been, at least a couple of 100 years, and it's been bred out of us because I'm supposed to know best about me, right? It's a hard way to go. And so I first started learning how to even say this. And I often joke that the 20 years ago version of me, if I could hear me today, would pretty much have me committed, right? But I had to learn it in a you can't surrender kind of a way. Your way's not working, right? Little by little, that sense of having failed, right? A lot of people hear surrender as a failure. What if surrender, and over the years for me, surrender has become, oh, thank God, and we were talking this morning actually about the journey of relief and anticipation. The sense of relief often goes along with a seclusion and a fragmentation, and leave me alone and go like that. But it's not that anymore. It's somewhere down the line towards a faith, and out of the abundance themes that from yesterday, that faith, again, not in a world of hope or a pie in the sky. It's real faith. Mm-hmm. One of Hasina's people yesterday said the baby knows it's going to get a glass of milk, or mama, and the little guy throwing the tantrum knows he's going to get a hug, like that. So I could throw out those metaphors all day long, but for me it always will be. I hope it always is. That's the progression of life. Yeah. And I hope to God tomorrow I can look back on what I just said and say, God, he was full of it. I hope I know enough tomorrow or very soon to know that I'm full of it right now.
That's progression. I really love what you said there about, we're supposed to know ourselves best in this world that is changing faster and expanding bigger than humans have ever experienced before. We don't know ourselves. And that's what I think this is, we do not, we can't, which is fantastic, because that's the evolutionary progression. We're not supposed to. I mean, we're creating and we're co-creating. So that's the beauty of it. And I loved your words there too, vulnerability and transparency. This is the age of transparency. So that's this is all, kind of tying in together. You can see I'm getting very excited by all of these aspects they're coming in. Thank you, Tom. And Hasina?
Well, it was interesting because I think I was just going through the motions at the time of my awakening. And I'll just tell you very shortly 3 things that happened. So the way that I really found out and started researching was I went to a corseteer to get measured for a bra, and he sort of put his hand there. He asked me permission to put his hand there and measure, and I said yes. And then he goes, "Can I ask you a loaded question?" I said yes. And he said, "When last did you have a mammogram?" And I said I hadn't. And he said, "Well, that might be a good idea. It feels a bit grainy in there." And I thought, oh my word, his man saying that, and I, as a woman whose breast it is, didn't even notice, right? Well, I knew that something was off, but I thought, oh, it's probably just a little something. And so that's when I started researching and found my own diagnosis, which was correct. I come from a medical family. So I put it off because there were 2 weeks until our girls' empowerment event, and it was a really big event. In the meantime, I was so consumed by fear because I know about the things that happen in the medical field. Like, my dad was an amazing doctor, but I know. And I then was so afraid that I called into Hay House Radio to Dr. Darren Wiseman's radio show. I don't quite know why I did that, because I hadn't known him very well before. Now I do, but back then I hadn't. And he said to me, I told him that I'm afraid, and how do I deal with this? I want to heal this with my mind. And he basically said, well, it's good to have it checked out. And then he said, but what do you want? What does your heart want? And I don't know where it came from deep inside of me. I suddenly said, I've been thinking about it. And he said, stop thinking right now, in this moment. What does your heart desire? And I went, the truth. My heart wants the truth. It was like, oh, wow, how did that happen? What is that? And so a little bit later into it, I thought I'd do something after our event, but somewhere in the interim, I called into Denise Lynn's show. And this time it was because I was really consumed with fear, knowing what it is. And she said to me in that moment that, well, I'm going to tell you about something that I use. I know that I'm not answering your question. And she was very kind, telling me about what had happened to her when she got shot at point blank range when she was 17. And she said how it helped her, this process. She said, the process is called the truth process. I missed that. I missed that completely. And then I was just like very grateful to her. And eventually, I did something about it. But when I actually put it together, I started blogging the journey. And when I put it together, I almost started shaking inside, thinking, oh my word, this is a moment. Like, this is when the listening began. And then I started blogging, knowing that I had a sense it was a significant moment, but then it was really confirmed. And of course, my whole life is about truth, because just a few months ago, or maybe I don't know how long ago, I remember, you see, I went to St. Dominic's Academy here in Newcastle, South Africa, and the motto on the school badge, guess what it was? Veritas, truth. Oh, it's taken me a long while to put it together, and that's where my book started.
I was going to say, your book is called The Truth Walker's Journey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I mean, you can see how strong and how clear that alignment was to truth. That's beautiful, beautiful. And Liz?
Yeah, that's very profound. As I'm sitting here, I'm feeling that perhaps these pauses are really leading each of us to what is most important to us. My recollection with the first pause, as I said, after it happened, I loved it. I didn't care if I ever went back, if I worked again or whatever. But what I remember experiencing was this feeling that I felt so good to know that I didn't need my business. I didn't need the title of founder and CEO. I thought I did. Not that my ego was huge, but like that somehow that was behind my doing this. And so this realization that I didn't need it, and I was okay, and I was okay telling people that I was doing nothing and wasn't running my business. That was really, really eye-opening for me, because I felt like, wow, there is freedom. I'm not doing this to feed my ego. This truly is whatever I'm doing coming from my heart and my soul. So that was a huge realization. With the second one, there was, I think, more of a desire to get more clarity on what really feeds me and bolsters my energy rather than zapping my energy. So again, kind of on this, on this path of light worker or whatever it is that we're doing and bringing out into the world, it felt like it was very important for me to understand that I needed to be very discerning about where I shared my energy, that even though there were numerous good causes and ways for me to serve, it was important to me and to my soul to be discerning and to make choices that were good for me. And that kind of, it goes against what we were taught. We weren't taught for self-care and self-love and do things for yourself. We were taught just to give it all away, particularly as women. And so I think it was just a remembering that no, you matter. You have a choice. Exercise that choice.
Yes. And I know, Liz, you've done that so beautifully. You have been so discerning, and I can see that did lead to the freedom. The discernment led to the freedom, to freedom too.
That's
and
right.
Ongoing.
That's right.
Beautiful. And Melissa? So just yeah.
So I think one of the biggest revelations for me was moving from an undercurrent of competitiveness to an undercurrent of collaboration through the process. And I say that it sounds logical when you retire, but I planned in retirement. I was a tennis player and I played USTA for many, many years. And I had planned to continue to play in retirement. But when I retired, all of a sudden, all of my competitive spirit left me, including my need for competition on the tennis court. So I stopped playing. I just put my racket down and walked away and loved it. So it was shocking to me that I was going to change in that kind of way. But when I made the transformation, when I made the change from working to retiring, I let go completely. And when I did that, that was the first thing that happened. And it just brought this sense of peace that I carry with me everywhere. And now when I enjoy watching, so I watch competition. I love sports, but I don't feel the personal need to compete with anything or anyone ever again. So
I love that you went there and are sharing that story, because I have to just affirm that I was very much a part of witnessing Melissa's the competitive drive, which was, amazing, really amazing in so many ways. And everyone around you, Melissa, was in shock. I remember asking you
Yes.
to repeat it. What did you say? You're not playing tennis anymore.
Yeah.
Played at least once a day, right? If not more. It was, you know, and with you having been in such a competitive environment,
Mhm.
and then your external activities, you know, mimicking that, and then boom, it was gone. I mean, it was amazing. It was just a profound, very profound
Mhm.
transformation.
But very easy, very easy. It just, there was a knowing, and it was like, okay, I'm going to put it down. And everybody was like, what? And I was like, what? And I said, this is where I'm going. So I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, really, really unbelievable. Just an amazing example of what we're talking about here. And so being that we are all, ultimately, we are all vessels of the EI, of the evolutionary impulse, and we both channel, we channel it, and we also represent it. We represent the universal. So I want to ask, what purpose is being served by your pause, first for your life, and then we're going to get into the bigger picture in a minute. But what purpose has been served for you for from your pause in your life currently? I mean, maybe it was a regrouping, a changing course, maybe it was resting, healing, maybe it was higher attunements, connections, whatever it might be. What do you think, in a nutshell, what got to be reintegrated within you? Tom?
A very deep sense of worthiness. And in the concepts of unitive justice that have come from this week, dismantling the I deserve into, and then letting the emergent I am worthy come forth.
Mm,
That's a community conversation. That's
I feel that.
right.
I really feel that. And it's kind of an unexpected insight, you know, worthiness. That's incredible. And Hasina?
I feel it was my deepest intention for my life made manifest, that it was my voice, my truth, and coming fully into who I am. And funny, during World Unity Week this week, I almost feel like it's not a pause, it's not a complete change of trajectory, but I feel something significant, that this is what you want to be doing every day in whatever way, through Truth Walker's journey, but in every way. So it's a realization here.
And I can feel the self-actualization. So, and an alignment and the authenticity that you are realizing so very genuinely. Thank you, Hasina. And Liz?
So yes, as I commented, the first pause, I think it was that realization that I was not my ego, and I didn't need titles or any of that. So that was eye-opening. But then I think the second one, because there was the health challenge, first of all, I definitely needed to go through a deep healing process. And I think as a result of that, and all what I'd almost say, I felt like I was battered around by life for those last 6 months of last year. And I needed to determine, how do I stay more grounded? How do I, put the pillar into the ground and not be thrown about as much? Which I thought I was doing, but apparently I needed more of a reminder. And so I think the result was a reprioritization, again, of myself and my soul's journey. So really looking more deeply at who am I, why am I here, and why am I doing what I do, and just being much more not only discerning but committed to this path that I believe I'm being called on. So it was just a deeper looking into myself, I think.
Yeah. And do you feel that your health journey, as a part of this journey, was that sort of an integrated realignment as well, or like a purging, a detoxing, energetically speaking?
Yeah, absolutely. So what was brought up, kind of as Hasina was saying, what was brought up was the deep underlying fear that I have of illness, because it's how I was raised in an environment of deep anxiety around illness that I thought I had overcome. And I think in many ways I'd gotten to a point, but it was like life said, yes, but there's still something deeper and we want to clear it completely. So it forced me to look even more deeply at what that anxiety was and what that fear was, just to face my fears head on. And I realized that I had faced other fears in life head on and overcome them. This one was lingering, apparently. And so it came up. I mean, it took me, I was in this space for at least 5 months. You know, it didn't happen quickly. This lasted from about December to just a month ago, maybe if even early this month, where things finally started. So there was just a lot of looking at it, but I absolutely feel like right now we are all being invited, and I was being invited to look closely at my fears, my anxiety around illness, and the scarcity mentality. And so I still think I'm working through some of those, but I think, many of us are working through whatever it is, the old story, the lies, the illusions, and however that's embedded into your system, and clearing it so that you can truly live fully.
Right. And did you I'm remembering, and this may have been early on in the first pause, receive a big spiritual message through part of the health crisis, which you don't have to share if it's a personal message, but I remember a person, we might even be going back a few years, but there was a big sort of a profound aha moment, a message that had come up around some of the health symptoms.
Wow, I don't remember, Sheila, specifically. I mean, there has no doubt been deep spiritual growth through all of this. And an understanding of, past lives and my path. And so that is absolutely part of all this. But I'm not right now, if it comes to me, I'll let you know. But right now it's not clicking that there was something specific around the anxiety and illness.
We can talk about it later, because it may be personal, but I remember it did have to do with the aspect of the feminine, and you have been an activist for feminism, divine feminine. And
right.
I think it was related to that. And I think we're going, I'm thinking back even before the pauses, but
possibly the work you and I did together. Maybe something came up there.
And Melissa?
I think there were two for me. One was a healing journey, and the messages that I received now that I'm in this collaborative and not competitive space was, it's going to be slow. So just let it unfold the way it needs to. You're going to heal very slowly. There's no competitive race here. Just let it happen day by day. So that was very, very strong for the last few years. And the other one was, my moms were the matriarchs of the family, and it was time for me to step into that position. So for my immediate family, my friends, and my extended family, I'm based on their role model, taking over that mantle from them and being there in ways that I can for anybody that's in my life. And that was big. I never had children, never wanted to have children, but now I'm finding that there's a lot of maternal instinct and now that I have the wisdom from my professional working life and all my experiences through life, I'm able to share those with others and help them along on their journeys.
And the maternal instinct doesn't have to include biological children. Liz and I have talked about this around war and peace. But the value of the maternal instinct is world changing. Yeah. And I love what you said too, Melissa, about, you have been a model of just letting it be. And that's where all that freedom and all those revelations. And, do you think that your maternal instinct would have been able to arise had you competitive corporate environment?
Yeah, no, because that leads to scarcity, and that's not, what it's all about. It's about abundance, finding the abundance and sharing the abundance.
Okay. So continuing to feel into that universal intelligence that guides the bigger picture. And those of you who know me or have read anything that I've written, I'm always extrapolating from the roots of our from biological, from our cellular, into our, life experiences, and how that ripples outward to the universal, to the collective, because it's all related. It's a very profound phenomena. So feeling into those qualities that you've just spoken about from your own journey, how might those qualities be paying it forward, rippling from your future into our collective future? This ultimately is our purpose. How is it rippling forward in ways would not have happened if you had not allowed your personal great lead? How might this phenomena be preparing us collectively for a new level of humanity as organism? And what is your newer direction in life as a result? So these are your qualities. This is your expression and your manifestation that whose purpose is about the ultimate collective future. Tom?
Wow, what a beautiful question in and of itself. That's a meditative space, just the way you elaborated that. I can't not share this. Because this phrase, don't hoard, somebody said don't hoard yourself earlier this week, and it keeps coming back. When Melissa was talking about adulthood and maternal instinct, and each of us has a maternal instinct and a paternal instinct. We have a yin yang, and this collective universal wisdom, access to the wisdom, is by way of the pause, right? It's by way of I got to stop being male, whether I have gonads or not, testicles or not, right? Stop being male, which we all do most of the time, and take a breath and be yin. We were talking about yin as the left receptive, yang is the right creative, quote female, quote male over there. So I had my eyes popped open pretty hard 3 years ago, and I had known in the back of my mind about this tyranny of big pharma, etc. It's a big deal in my life. And it's not why I walked away from practice, but as I got clear outside of the arena, it grew and grew and grew and grew. And then what do you know? The universe gave me a huge growth spurt, right? When they closed the planet. And I've looked pretty deeply into this tyranny. And it occurs to me that Hitler and his gang were little tyrants, little bullies, right? Little kid bullies, kid tyrants. And as much as we think that the Holocaust was the worst thing to happen, it was actually at the beginning. And I think we have very mature and very elegant tyrants right now that are speaking a language that doesn't actually have to offend in ways that Stalin and the regime had to offend, right? It's a very subtle offense. And one of the things that, for me, the access, if I have something to offer a more mature, whatever the flip side of that is, right? The darkness is mandatory. So this is offered here these past 50 years, 70, 80 years, right? As a very dark instruction. And that's not to demonize it. It's a very dark instruction. The dark instruction is a promise that you are about to be something more than you could ever imagine, right? And so the way I would have talked about it 5 years ago, about Big Pharma, me and my bandbox, me and my blah, 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 teach them a lesson, talk about my personal sense of offense, that has transformed a lot. And I think that's the gift that we can give people with this conversation is, yeah, you better look deep. You better look down the rabbit hole and bring your very best, right? Bring your very best sense of compassion or coping mechanisms or whatever that is. Bring them with you because you're going to need your big tools. Like this is where the big boys play, right? And it's something like that. So I think that's the pause for me. And this week has put a beautiful exclamation point on it. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
You're speaking Melissa's language, and I'll get to her in a few minutes. I mean, when I met Melissa, oh goodness, a dozen years ago, I guess, this was her language for a long time now. I want to just add in there too, Tom. When you spoke about worthiness was something that was coming up for you, and I'm thinking, what could be more worthy within humanity than everyone fully knowing their own worthiness. So I just want to just throw that in, and just as an additional aspect there. I'm really appreciating that.
Really great.
Patsina?
Well, I've just been listening to this, and so many aha moments for me, and so much reflection. Like, it's as if I'm looking into a mirror, different circumstances. But what I found was that, so in 2013, when I started looking at, I don't like tutoring school children. It's not like, I mean, I have a lot of joy when all the children that I tutored through the years and taught in a classroom contact me, and I see what they're doing now. That's brilliant. But I did not like doing it at the time, and I realized I had to do something else. And so I looked into Reiki, started studying it, and I didn't quite find myself. And then I went down the path of, I just happened to open an email that I might not even have opened, and ended up on listening to a radio show where someone was talking about Akashic Records readings. And it was the teacher was giving a special on the course. I decided to take it. And looking back now, I feel like that was almost a preparation. I'm not fond of the word preparation, but it all came together. to right now. 3 years ago, when this whole thing happened in the world, a few things happened, and I said to one of our speakers, who's starting to build a friendship with, he's a doctor, and he spoke on one of our panels, and he was talking about how his wife was part of his awakening. And I said, well, you know what? Tom was part of mine, because 3 years ago, because of all those experiences, I was open to look. And what I saw was, oh my word, how did I miss this? How did I miss the controlled narrative? How did I miss all this? And the fact that I was about voice and truth, that came through. And I've been using my voice in a different way, in a way that is for me, but I've been stepping up and just doing that. So that's what I get to bring to the collective. And then I've done a lot of Akashic Records readings through the years. And I remember doing one in this 3-year period, maybe it was 2 years ago, and getting a message for a client, but it applied to me too, about how this darkness that we had been through, this control and the actual situation, this was so necessary to get us up to speed with who we need to be, so that we can evolve at the pace at which we need to bring in the new age of peace and unity, which I feel is upon us. It's not coming. We get to be leading edge. We are the pioneers, and we get to usher it in, and it's such a great honor. But that's what everything feels like it's prepared me for. So I've had quite a few awakenings in this period.
Yeah, thank you, Hasina. And with you spoke about tutoring children in the beginning, but your organization of giving voice to young women is the kind of the extrapolation of that, integrating your truth, your path of truth, and allowing them to speak their truth and to have the voice. So it's really clear. You can see how all of it is integrating forward. And of course, working with the young women as you are is the rippling forward. They will be carrying all of that forward into the future. Thank you. And Liz?
Just the voice of the divine feminine coming through. I mean, at first, I just go back to the very easy rebalancing of the doing and the being, the head and the heart, the masculine and feminine, the ego and the soul. But what really struck me, both Tom and Hasina have touched on it. And one of the messages that I heard probably middle of last year, as I started to enter into this other pause, was you need to be even healthier and even stronger. And that was a really powerful message. It kind of was saying, you are. I mean, I was already focused on my health and already dealing with the awareness of the bigger picture of what was going on, as Tom alluded to. But it was like the message said, yep, and you've got to be even stronger, even healthier, because as we move forward, that's what's going to be needed. And so anyway, I throw that message out there, as I believe we are being prepared for this co-creation. That's the bigger picture, I think, that's happening, and this co-creation in truth and in freedom that has come through as well. So yeah.
Yes, thank you, Liz. And Melissa?
So I would say what my journey is bringing to the collective is a soft, comfortable wisdom. Wisdom can come in a lot of different forms, and mine is and on what my mother gave to me, which was unconditional love and acceptance. And so because I experienced that all my life with her, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to continue that in her role for those that are around me.
Unconditional love. And we have to start with that core group of people around ourselves. If we're
Yeah,
out
and
around globetrotting and not really dealing with what's right next to us, elbow to elbow, then really.
And I think the other thing that's important for the generation we all came from, although it had its issues, there was a calmness and a peace that we experienced growing up that kids and adults and folks in their 20s are not experiencing today. And I feel that's something we can give them. We have that foundation from our generation that we can bring forward and share with them and make sure they feel that in a world of chaos, and teach them that even though you hear all this chaos, you really want to go deep within, because that's where you're going to hear the real messages. And when you do that, the chaos starts to lessen and you become deaf to it. So that experience is really, really super important for people who are, living in this world today. And something that we collectively can bring from our experiences in the generation we grew up in.
Oh, so beautiful. And your maternal instinct is permeating all of your words there, and nurturing the younger generation. And because, I mean, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, that calm and peace that you speak of from those days, could be lost. It could be lost. And just a quick thing, and then I'll get to you, Liz.
Yeah.
I want to say along those lines, I just watched the first episode of the second series of the Wonder Years, because it brings that all back. There was so much turmoil in the 60s, but there were so many other things in terms of, kind of freedom and calm and space, that, as you said, we don't have anymore. Liz,
So
what's your
comment and question, just to explore it a little bit further, Melissa. I agree, and I've been talking to my sons who are in their 20s about this, that we had more certainty, it felt like. And yet what I would say is it was an illusion of certainty. It was based on, we had a political system, we believed our politicians, we had a medical system, we believed, we had educational systems, and on. We had religious foundations. We had all of these systems in place that we trusted and believed were working. And I believe that's where the calm, at least it certainly contributed to that calm and peace that we experienced. Now, in a time when we're realizing that that's all falling apart, the invitation is to go within, as you were saying. That's where the calm and the peace are truly meant to be found. So where we were in the past, perhaps looking outside of ourselves, now the invitation is, it's there, and this is far more lasting. We don't have to rely on any outside systems. We can rely on the truth within ourselves. And that, I think, is really, really powerful as we move forward.
Very well said.
So important. And as someone who never particularly ascribed to any particular religion, I've been involved in probably 7 different religions in my life from birth, but never particularly aligned with any of them. And people have asked me, where does your faith come from, and where does your confidence come from? And I said, it comes from from not aligning. So I love that. I love that, Liz. So and Melissa, did you have any other follow-up words, or are you complete on this one?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, so we have a few more minutes. I just want to do a quick round. I want to ask this question. And again, sort of in a nutshell, this one, and then we'll get to a closing. What doesn't matter as much anymore since your pause? What doesn't matter so much anymore that mattered before your pause? And what matters more to you now? Tom?
Maybe my silence is speaking it.
Nothing matters
And
all
that
about
was really, that was what I was thinking about, is what, and it's a pause from this week. I had not thought of it this way before, that the words themselves, as important as I think they are with my ego, they're in the way.
Mhm.
Like, you know, and I create plenty of them.
Mhm.
And I deserve to be free of them.
Okay, and Hasina?
Well, for me, I think what doesn't matter anymore is, for the most part, justifying. I mean, every now and then I catch myself doing that, but it really doesn't matter. I don't need to explain anything unless I want to, and it's a wonderful space to be. And what matters is just being who I am, being fully me, like my deepest truth and nothing else, to the point where even for this week, because I've been involved in so much, and it all came ago. So it led me, like, if I have a session and I only have 5 to 10 minutes and I haven't had time to prepare for it, it was just a matter of saying, okay, come to your deepest truth. You've got this, because the universe is speaking through you. Like, you know, you get to be you, and you know who you are. It's very freeing, because, you know, I don't have to, I can look at my hair, which may not be like I really want it or whatever. It really doesn't matter. I can take a drink of water and I'm not thinking, you know, I'm just being me. It's beautiful.
Applause. Applause. And Liz?
Yes, and Hasina, by doing that, you model that for others. You know, we give permission to others to then just be completely authentic, which is a real gift, especially for women and young women. So I'll start with what matters to me. The only thing that matters now is that I am on my unique soul's journey of growth and transformation. Whatever that is, I want to know it, and I want to be on that path. And what that leads to is, what doesn't matter is what anybody else thinks I should or shouldn't be doing. And that includes, you know, it's one thing when you say the world, but that includes those closest to you, you know, husband, children, parents, sibling, you know, all those people that, as we realize, had expectations of you in some way or another. They do. But just to say that that's just, it's very challenging, but it's incredibly freeing. And that, to me, when I just look toward this second half of my life, is that's how I want to live.
Beautiful. Melissa?
So what's not important anymore is worry and control. Don't have to worry about things. Don't have to control everything. What's important is, as I've refined my values and my personal values and morals, it is to always in any situation that I'm in, ensuring that whatever my reaction is, it's consistent with my internal morals and values, and continuing to refine those and continuing to live my life by those, which is another way to say my authentic self. Just staying on my authentic path and doing what's important to me, because I know that that brings value to the world, regardless of what anybody else thinks.
Yes, beautiful. And as we close, with a few minutes left here, I just like to ask, what message of encouragement or guidance would you share with those listeners about the great pause, if they are feeling it, but they're in that high level position, or they're in that long-term relationship, or they're in that religion they were born into, or they, whatever it is, what would you say to those who maybe are not feeling courageous, are not feeling worthy, are not feeling they're getting the calling, but they don't know what to do with it? What's a few words that you would say to them, Tom?
To bring it right back to the poke in the ribs analogy that we started with, I wrote down your opening words, which were that you had been working with folks who noticed some thought-provoking patterns. And the word notice is the thing. The thought-provoking patterns are always there. Yeah. And once you've glimpsed it once, you get to take ground, as we used to say, right? Give yourself credit for noticing it once, and then noticing that most of the time we're not there. Most of the time we step away from that. But those thought-provoking patterns are always, always, always there. So in a dark time or a downtime or a dispirited time, we can take a deep breath and revisit that sense of personal dogma. And that's, make that a personal dogma, that the thought-provoking patterns are always there. And if I don't feel it right now, it's just because I am moving way too fast. Stop sign.
Yes. Thank you, Tom. And Hasina?
I would say that this could be your point A. It could be your point A, and you get to journey to your point B. And to give yourself permission to do that. Give yourself permission to consider this your point A, and just allow it to happen, because when do you get that? You could make it possible at any time, but when do you feel you really get that? And like Tom said, we learn to notice in the moment that, what, this is a significant moment. So you probably have been noticing, and you might have an inkling inside if you just be quiet and go then, and it is noticeable that this is significant. Make it your point A.
Love it. Point A. A.
Amen.
That's going to be my new mantra. Point A. And Liz?
I would say be quiet, listen in, and get to really know the voice of your soul and your higher self. That's the one that is really, really most important. And from that, when you get that nudge to do something that's outside your comfort zone, be okay with saying yes. Because back to the online summit that Sheila and I created, one of the most powerful things that kept coming up from the amazing women who were doing extraordinary things was they said yes before they knew how they were going to carry it out. They figured it out along the way.
Yes, great point, Liz. And Melissa?
And just to add to all that, allow those doors to close, because things that once you close a door, another door automatically opens. So it's okay to let those doors close and trust that that next door is going to open.
Oh, Melissa, that's such a powerful aspect of this, your words, because closing the doors are maybe scarier than opening the other doors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an incredible point. We've got 1 minute left. I want to say thank you to all of my incredible panelists. for your open-hearted sharing. And I know that your stories and your messages are going to be influencing so many people out of there that have been aware of that niggling, that maybe couldn't name it or understand it or move on it, weren't having that courage or inspiration. So your words have been very valuable today. And just for the listeners, I'm wishing all of you harmony and fulfillment too, as you continue immersing in your knowings and your attunement to the life impulse. And may you feel inspired and courageous and excited to experience this pause along your own evolutionary path forward to your most aligned future. And so I would say for now, everyone, be well. Bye for now.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thanks so much, Sheila.